Welcome back, everybody. We're here with the 10th mock draft in this year's cycle. I'm joined by my good friend, Nick Crain. How about you give yourself an elevator pitch because you do it better than I would?
Yeah, Nick Crain. Do a lot of stuff, mostly draft and Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, makes it a busy time of year right now with the Thunder butting up right up against the draft itself. Had the pleasure of doing a whole bunch of stuff with Cyro and the NBA media space, and that's both domestic in the States and international and Italy. And about damn time we jump on here and do a mock draft. It's long overdue.
Yeah, long overdue. I've known you for over a year, so it's wild that this is the first one that we're doing. So obviously, this is the foregone conclusion. The Mavs will take Cooper Flagg, so we're just really no debate there. But go check out Nick. His links are going to be in the description, and hit that like and subscribe button. But comment what you guys think is going to happen, maybe any trades. As of right now, Nick, I don't know if you've been paying attention. I'm also going to take Dale and Harper with the second pick because that's kind of like.
Easy.
But with that being said, these are the rumored picks. I don't really do trades in my mock, but I just discuss them, and that's regarding the Raptors allegedly are in discussions with the ninth pick. There's the dark horse rumor that it's a Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Jakob Pertl plus the ninth pick for Kevin Durant. The Rockets could package the 10th pick and the 2027 pick for KD. And the Brooklyn Nets have 4 first rounders, so they're going to be making a trade. But besides that, do you think the Sixers right here stay or go?
I think they go. Like it would take a player. I mean, it's not out of the question. Desmond Bane got traded. Nobody saw that coming. It would take one of those types of trades where a guy that we weren't really thinking about being on the trade block becomes available and 3 is on the table, which would be an insane level player to trade a number 3 overall pick. Like we're talking about KD for maybe like 9th or 10th. I think the Sixers ultimately make the pick. That said, the pick is not so easy. I think there's like probably the most polarizing pick in the draft, and probably the pick that is the first domino that could like shake up 4 through 10. Frankly, I'm curious where you sit on it. I'll let you lead the charge on this one, and I'll tell you how I feel afterwards. But it's an interesting pick.
So I have no problem with Ace Bailey, but I was never an Ace Bailey stan. Like I've always liked VJ Edgecombe more than I might even say that like Tre Johnson has a better offensive package in terms of Tre Johnson is the best natural scorer in this draft class. That's like hands down. There's no argument there. But I think people are I just with Ace, like we're looking at Brandon Miller best case scenario, and that's the third pick, but I think Brandon Miller was more of a polished player coming out of Alabama, so I just
Older too.
really,
Yeah,
I
Brandon Miller
didn't.
was almost 20 as a rookie, and I mean, not that it matters that much in the grand scheme of things, but I do agree with you. Brandon Miller was much more polished than Aces.
So this is where it becomes tough because obviously there's a positional need at the forward spot if you're the Sixers, but I just think VJ Edgecombe, especially if you're a competing team, is going to be one of those rookies who can be like a Cason Wallace or something where they can contribute at least as part of the back end of a rotation. And that's kind of what matters, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if it's any other team besides the Sixers at 3, like any of the teams that it's a weird draft because there's 2 teams in the top 3 that like, and maybe even all 3 teams in the top 3 that probably will be gunning for the playoffs this year, which is not normal for the top 3 picks. I think if it's like if the Hornets were here or the Nets were here, like I think it's Ace Bailey pretty easy, just given where they're at in their franchise cycle. I think that VJ and Tre are probably better fits for the short term. Like, could Ace Bailey be better than both? Absolutely, long term. But the Sixers aren't really built to be a long term team. You got Paul George, you got Joel Embiid. You do have some younger guys in Tyrese Maxey and even Jared McCain, who was great before he got injured last year. There may be some crossover with a guy like VJ or Tre. I wouldn't count out Khan here at this pick. I think he could actually help a ton with the Sixers. I don't know if they'd make that big of a swing. That may be more of a trade back, but
I was literally going to say that. Yeah.
rule it out.
That's literally, I've said this because in prior mocks, I've said, hey, I think the best guy for the Sixers in this situation is Khan. And everyone's like, you just can't take Khan at 3. But my whole thing is, if I don't really think there's a team that wants to trade up the 3 to take Ace Bailey.
No.
And I think best case scenario, the Pelicans offer you it's the 7th pick and the 23rd pick they have now, and you move back, you get 2 picks now in this draft, and they give you the 3rd. You take Concanipple at 7. He'll be there at 7. That's good value. You get yourself a guy who's going to at least day one be a above average league 3-point shooter who tries really hard on defense and is a better defender than people give him credit, and can be like a connector, secondary, facilitator. So but what do you think they're going to do if they stayed here? Is it VJ? I just feel like that's also more Daryl Morey's pick.
I think it's VJ. Like if I were gun to my head, I think it's VJ.
So if you're the Hornets, do you take the poor man's Brandon Miller when you already have Brandon Miller? And that allows you maybe to trade Miles Bridges in the next year or so, if that's possible. Or do you go Tre Johnson or Mawatch?
I would go Ace here if I'm the Hornets. I just, frankly, even in the East, it's not ultra competitive. I'm still not convinced the Hornets are like that close to being a good team in the East. I get the redundancy with Brandon Miller. I'm just a believer in when you're at that stage of your franchise building, you take the guy that could be the best player in this class in theory. Like Cooper Flagg will be the best player in this class, but like in theory, Ace has the upside to be like a franchise cornerstone if he figures things out. Tre Johnson, like as good as I think he'll be, there's also a floor where he's just Tre Man and is just like a dynamic, shifty scorer who does some flashy stuff. Like there's guys in every class that are like Tre Johnson. He's less unicorny to me, although I'm super high on him. I still think they go Ace in this situation.
Yeah, I think this is still best pick available. Like you said, when you're in a situation like that, you have the Hornets just take Ace Bailey. And I mean, as I said earlier, you could look at it as a way for you to finally move off of Miles Bridges if you were worried that moving him would leave you a hole at that position, because now you can argue that you have to trade him to create minutes and opportunities for Miller and Bailey. But with the 4th pick, we had the Hornets take Ace Bailey. So now with the 5th pick, do you think it's basically like we said earlier with the Mavericks, but with the Jazz, a foregone conclusion? If Tre Johnson's there, they take Tre Johnson because, again, best pick available, and they really just need a second scorer who isn't Jordan Clarkson or Colin Sexton next to Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, I think Tre's the pick, like bar none. That said, I don't think it's as obvious or clear of a pick. Like when I think about Utah, I think about the guards they have that are super interesting. Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, like guys that a year ago, if we were doing this mock draft, or 2 years ago doing this mock draft, we would be saying similar things. Like what a great guard you could pick up in the lottery that could end up being like your starting backcourt guy. There is some redundancy there, but I do think Tre is the obvious one in this situation.
I also think Tre, obviously you would seldomly play him at the 3, but he is big enough to be more of a swing man, while Keontae George, one of his problems was he was slotted in as a backcourt player, while Tre Johnson can actually probably play as a backcourt and on the wing, which gives you a bit more versatility.
Totally.
Now, with the 6th pick.
This is where the YouTube comments will be popping off.
So at first, it seemed like everybody wanted the local kid, Derek Queen. But as the draft, pre-draft has gone by, the believers in Queen are not there as they were in the beginning of the cycle. And I like Queen. I think there are some obvious flaws in his game. Same thing with Kaman Malawatch. And there's Jeremiah Fears, Kasparis Yakachonis, and Yago Demon. However, the argument with everyone saying you shouldn't take a guard here because one of those 3 guards is going to be available at 18, because the teams that are between 6 and 18, I think it's only like the Brooklyn Nets and maybe the Chicago Bulls that need a point guard. So what do you do here if you're looking at like Malwatch, Fears, Knipple, Essengay, Kasparis, Yagor, Carter Bryant, Derek Queen, CMB? If you're the Wizards, which have a front office that is a Thunder
Uh-huh.
regime brain trust alumni.
Yeah, I personally would go Jeremiah Fears. I get the reasoning of um, there's other guards that are potentially just as good, though different. Like Demon is very different than Jeremiah Fears. I think Yakachonis is a guy that while he's a lead guard now, might not play point guard in the NBA. We see tons of those guys that are international, like Josh Giddey's an example, like even like a Joe Ingles, like guys that grew up playing lead guard and like had the ball in their hands a bunch and were great passers. Get to the NBA, they have the size early on. They're slotted in on the wing because the team already has a lead guard, or just to get them minutes, you got to put them weird places. I think Jeremiah Fears, I see a pathway for him being very, very, very good as a point guard or as a shooting guard. Obviously, as a scoring pop, like that, there's no question about that. Maybe some shooting concerns, but the dude can score the ball. He can also facilitate. He was, I mean, he basically a high school senior leading an SEC offense, best player on Oklahoma last year. That would be the pick for me. I could see arguments for like 6 players here for the Wizards. Like they're in a place where their roster could use a lot. I would go Fears here.
And one thing to go off of there, so I feel that exact same way, but about Kasparis, that I think he can play the one or the two. He's more suited to
Maybe he can
be
play
an
the 3.
literally. But he's a guy who's shown to be able to play off ball, especially if you have Jordan Poole, Bub Carrington all over there. And coming from a brain trust that, if you look at the Thunder, they don't really have a prototypical point guard, but they just have a lot of positional size, like a bunch of guys over 6'6" and like to 6'9", from Aaron Wiggins, J Dub, Shea, and I guess their smallest guy is Kassan Wallace, but Caruso, Lou Dort, etc. And that's why I think Guy Jonas is someone that intrigues me, but I think he'll be available at 18. My fear with Fears is he's way more ball dominant. Like Kasparis doesn't need the ball. Like obviously he thrives with the ball, but he's a bit more ball dominant. I mean, Jeremiah Fears is, I think if he doesn't have the ball in his hands, I think he's not as productive as a player. So that's my biggest concern with him. Now, who's a dark horse that I think ever since his measurements were released? Johan Beringer or Beringer. Or
Really? This early, huh?
people, I've been hearing that he's a lottery pick now. 7'5" wingspan, 6'11" barefoot. And the thought is, okay, Alex Sarr, he's probably going to be your poor man's Jaren Jackson Jr. at best, where, a 3-and-D, non-rebounding power forward who's probably a fringe all defense guy. And if you have a Johan Beringer, imagine, Sarr being a trail 3-man, like, big 3, like 3-point shooting big man, while Johan Beringer is just running out, or Beringer, whatever you want to. I have not gotten a confirmation what's the right way to say it, but be this kind of athletic Mitchell Robinson-esque, just freak running down the floor, putting putbacks, dunking, swatting, and I think that, especially with Brian Keefe being a defensive coach, I think that's one to be the dark horse. And I agree that, like, I'll go Fears here because I have not done Fears at this point.
And look, like I like Johan as well. I think that Johan is a guy, if you're a GM, if he hits, you're probably getting a contract extension. You probably push the franchise forward. If he doesn't, and you draft a guy like that at 6, who I also believe, like, if you take him 12 to 20, I'm not batting an eye. Like, I think that's a reach, if you will, you can take. But at 6, that's rich for me. That's one of those, like, gets you fired in a year kind of moves. I also think like the Wizards are this team. Like, I was lobbying for them to be like one of the better Cooper Flagg destinations, because the Wizards have interesting pieces. They don't have the guy. And while I love Yakachonis, I think he'll be a great player in the league, I don't see him being like the guy on a team. I don't know if Fears could be the 1A on a championship team either, but I could see Fears being an all-star by 2030. And I think he has that upside, and he's got the juice. He's got the lead guard. I just think that the Wizards need somebody that can be the guy. And as good as Alex Sarr will be, he's not going to be the guy. Like, they don't have him. They need somebody that can be the person.
Yeah, and I get that. And for me, that's why I really like Kasparis, because I think he has a little Tyrese Halliburton in his game where he's able to create off, the bounce and the dribble, but he doesn't like insert himself in the same way that like Tyrese doesn't always assert himself,
Mm-hmm.
and he just kind of plays within the flow of his team. And also, Kasparis is like an incredible like scorer at the rim. I think that's an underrated. I think he almost 60% at the rim in half
He's
court
huge.
settings. Yeah, I mean he's a huge player, but so at 6, we took Jeremiah Fears. 7, I think this needs no discussion. If Zion Williamson is truly the guy that they're building around, according to Joe Dumars, then you would take Con Knipple, because when you have guys like that, you just want players who can score without the ball in their hand and just be able to be cohesive pieces of a already established core. And imagine Con Knipple, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson in like these small ball lineups. I think that could be something that like is really fun to watch. So at
Yeah.
7, Knipple, that's obvious. Now at 8, the Brooklyn Nets. This is where it gets wild. Sam Vecini compared Noah Essengate to like a Pascal Siakam type potential. I don't really see that. I really just see him being more of a freak athletic version of like Jeremy Sohan, just maybe not as like defensively gifted, and like just basically the same roles, not the same player, if that makes sense, where they're like not big enough to play the 5, but like they're kind of too clunky to play the 3. So I just and then they have Nick Claxton on this contract where it pays him, I believe, 25 this year, 23
Mm-hmm.
next year, 20 the following year. So if you draft a Mawatch or a Queen or somebody, you're able to move him. Or maybe there's some Mikhail Prokoviv, or whatever his name, the old Russian owner. Maybe he's got some ties still around and he wants to bring in Yagor and he says this
Yeah.
is our guy. What do you think about this? And the Nets have 4 picks, by the way. So
They
they're going
do.
to be trading one of those back end picks. What do you do here?
So my viewpoint of the Nets, and to be clear, when you're evaluating team fit, you should never think about like just this upcoming season, because like a team like the Nets is built to be better longer term. That said, like when I look at them today, I actually kind of buy their front court. Not that they have like stars, but like Nick Claxton. I'm a believer in Noah Clowney.
Not his 3-point shot though. It was
No.
bad.
But like as a player, I believe in him. I think even like Jalen Wilson as like a 3-4 is interesting. You have Day'Ron Sharp, who like may not even be on the team next year. But, like I think he's an interesting like backup kind of big. Like when I think about their roster, there's a lot of front court players I believe in. Maybe not as stars, but like I believe in being like rotation players. It's the backcourt that I still don't really buy. Like even Cam Thomas, I just don't know if I buy him as a 1 or 2 option in the NBA. Like I think he's more of like a 3rd option or 4th option, or even like a 6-man kind of score on a championship team. So if we're thinking about guards here, I could see them swinging on one of the guards, one of the international guards. So they both played college ball. I also think Essengate, I wouldn't sleep on him. Like I know Fanspo here has him at 6'8". He measured at 6'10" barefoot at the combine. Like that's a humongous individual. I think he goes higher than people think. I also, that said, with the front court stuff, I don't know if you can pass on Malawach at this point when you're a team like Brooklyn who just needs really high upside talent. I don't know. I'll defer to you on this one. If you were Brooklyn, who are you taking?
Well, it's hard because I do agree with you that I think the glaring hole on this team is there's no point guard of the future, or even a guy that you would say is the building block. And I think any front office, you usually choose we're going to build around a center or we're going to build around a guard. I think with big men, they aren't in abundance, so that's why when there's a really good big man, they typically go at the top of the draft. While you're more likely to find someone between 6'2" and 6'5" who plays the guard position, because there's more humans on Earth of that stature. So look, they need a primary ball handler. They don't have a playmaking guard. Assuming that D'Angelo Russell might be coming back, he may not be coming back. I do agree. A lot of the times I have been taking Jeremiah Fears at this pick as the young lead guard
They would
who
love that.
can run the offense, play through his mistakes. And Jordy Fernandez is a coach I really like.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they also go foreign here. But I think I really think Noah Essengay might be the pick here.
Yeah.
Because again, next year's draft class might have better actual floor generals and free agency as well, or they can maybe sign Josh Giddey or somebody this offseason. I think there are other ways to address the guard position, either as a bridge player till next year or in another, a way of getting an addition at that position. I think, like you said, if we're gonna go off of a team that's just gonna swing on upside, I think Essengay. I also think Malwatch is in the same boat as Johan Beringer, is that they're just both shot blocking, put back bigs who are good rim runners that aren't gonna ever develop an offensive game outside of 5 feet. Let's take Noah Essengay. What do you think?
I like it. Let's do it. I do think you're right, though. Their dream scenario is Fears falling to 9.
Yes,
or falling to their pick. Yeah, not necessarily 9. The Raptors is the pick that I think will probably draft here in a vacuum where the Raptors actually have this pick. I would not be shocked if the Raptors did not have this pick on draft night. I think they're in a situation where they're kind of a tweener, where they probably will have the talent next year with Brandon Ingram coming into the fold to compete for a play-in or a top, maybe like a seed between 6 and 10 will be in the cards for them. That said, I also think there's a world in which they are not
Hold
great.
that thought.
You don't have audio now.
No, I have audio. I was just
there you
muted.
go. Let there be light. I was saying that I think that the Raptors could go two directions here. They could trade Jakob Poeltl, for example, for more picks or young talent, and I think he's got trade value around the league. Maybe it's not the KD trade, but I think you could trade him and take a Malawatch here and feel really good about your 3 to 5 years down the road with this team. I think there's also a world where they try to draft a player that can help this year and shoot for the 6th seed in the East with Brandon Ingram, which seems to be the direction they want to go. I see a lot of scenarios here. They may not even have this pick. I just think Malawatch at 9. I know you may not be as high on him, but like if he's sitting there at 9, I would jump at it. No matter what you're playing with Jakob Poeltl is, I think he's just the guy.
I mean, we all know about the open secret infatuation that Masai Ujiri has for his NBA Africa alum.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I have him going. It's not that I'm low on him, and I agree. It's just that, like, look, I think his best case scenario is a lankier DeAndre Jordan, which is an all-star center. Okay. And to me, I think this is where, if they have the 9th pick, they get him, because I don't think the Raptors want to extend Poeltl. And if they do extend him, it's to trade him. And then, Kaman Malwatch just gives you a guy to be the succession plan there and maybe bring him on a little slower than you need to. So at 9, the Raptors take Kaman Malwatch. So going to the Rockets, this is another team that could trade this pick, or they could keep it. And if they keep it, I think there's a couple. I think the dark horse to me is Rasheer Fleming. I really think, but it's the obvious one where people are saying Colin Murray-Boyles. They need a power forward, and he is the poor man's Draymond Green. People are comparing him to.
And if you can't shoot, and you're the front court mate of Alperen Şengün, I think you're going to struggle to compete in the playoffs. Like, really struggle to compete in the playoffs. I think that if you're going to draft a 4, like, I would not take Fleming over Colin Murray-Boyles in a vacuum. Like, they just top to bottom draft board. I think Colin Murray-Boyles will go before Rasheer Fleming. If you're the Rockets, I think Rasheer Fleming's a better fit than Colin Murray-Boyles.
That's kind of what I mean by that.
I think Yakachonis would be a great pick here. If Fred is not in their long-term plan, if he is in their long-term plans, it's more of like a 2-year extension or 3-year extension kind of thing while you wait for Reed Shepherd to come to his own, hopefully, and then Thompson to get more reps. Like, I think he's another name that gives you an insurance policy in the backcourt. I think that if you don't trade for Kevin Durant and you need a front court mate next to Şengün, Tari Easton's awesome. Jabari Smith Jr. will continue to get better. I just don't see Colin Murray-Boyles really being, or even Derek Queen for that matter, being a great fit in Houston. And those are probably two of the best guys on the board right now. But for Houston, I don't love it.
What about Cedric Coward?
I like that. I do like that. I struggle. He's another one that, not that Houston's in a situation where they can't take a swing, because they certainly can. They're not Washington, where you take a guy early and like it screws your franchise. Cedric here at 10 is a little rich for me.
Wow, really?
I just like, what did he play? 8 games this past season, or maybe 6 games. But if
you want to hear this?
Yeah.
38% from 3 in the entirety of his D1 college career. He's shot 41% on 135 catch and shoot 3-point attempts in the last 2 years. Right now, he's made 70% of his attempts at the rim per synergy over the last 2 years. He averaged 3.7 assists per game in those 6 games. However, he's been a guy that has shown that he's always been able to make the right play, and I think he's someone who can guard 2 through 4. He has a 7'3" wingspan. He's 6'5" in bare feet, and he has 10-inch hands. I just think like right here, like you said, going back to the Rasheer Fleming's a little too richly go right here, but I think Cedric Coward's the kind of guy that, maybe he should be at 14 or 16, but if you're the Rockets, you can take
a swing. Yeah, I'll contradict you only for the sake of the argument. I like Cedric Coward, by the way. Like I like him a lot. I think there's there are guys that exist in the Big Sky Conference that have similar numbers to what Cedric Coward did at Eastern Washington. Like as great as it is, there are other guys that also have those kind of numbers. In his 6 games at Washington State, the teams he played, I'm playing devil's advocate. I love Cedric Coward. Portland State, Bradley, Idaho, Iowa, Northern Colorado, and Eastern Washington before he got hurt. He had 30 in that final game before he got hurt against his or penultimate game rather, 22 in his final game. But the only real competition, in my opinion, in that entire 6-game stretch was Iowa, who was like a fine basketball team. They lost by 10. He had 9 points in that game. Again, tiny sample size. I don't know how much you can even take from those reasons. You're really evaluating his Eastern Washington tape, which I think was awesome. He's a hard eval for me. I think if anyone's going to take him in the lottery, Houston is a good option to do so. I'm not like over the moon about taking him at 10.
Carter Bryant.
I love Carter Bryant. Not that he has much more of a sample because he didn't play a ton at Arizona, but
he has a little bit of Patrick Williams in him too. That's my fear, if that makes sense. Like different, like it's in the sense that like I think he's a better defender than Patrick Williams, and Patrick Williams is actually a decent defender, but I think Carter Bryant has the same tendencies offensively in terms of being background noise or passive, where he's just okay, just swinging the ball and just like
do you buy production or do you buy pedigree? Cedric Coward is more of the lineage of Jalen Williams, who played in a smaller program but was very productive and has the measurements. Carter Bryant is more of the huge recruit, played amazing in high school. Obviously playing in Arizona, you got to be a huge recruit, and then got minutes, not a ton, but got minutes at Arizona, and his numbers weren't like gaudy, but when you look at like per 100 and some of the advanced stuff, like it pops a little bit. So you're almost buying like the pedigree and upside and the athleticism. I still think I'd go Yakachonis here, but I'll let you make the final call.
You think they'd go Yakachonis after drafting Reed Shepherd last year?
I do. Did you see enough from Reed, whether it's opportunity, which generally comes when you're good enough or prove to the coaching staff you can play, but even in the minutes he played, like, did you see enough to say, yeah, I would not draft another guard at 10 next year? Like, we're not talking about the number 1 pick drafting a guard. We're talking about number 10.
No, so what I was more in the sense that they don't play two guards. They usually just have one guard on the floor, and they like to go kind of like two forwards or two wings and a forward, or two forwards and a wing with their center, or two centers and then two forwards. So I just positionality of like how Ime Udoka likes to run his depth. I was just thinking I just think they would go for the guy who plays defense and shows. That's why I was thinking maybe more of a Cedric Howard or a Carter Bryant, but I don't think they have time to wait for Carter Bryant to work out. So I
For
think they
sure.
bring Cedric Howard because they're also starting to get to that point where they're going to have to start making decisions on their roster to avoid the cap gymnastics as they have to start paying dudes.
Yeah. Let's do Cedric. I like that. We'll mix it up.
Because this is another thing when we get to the Oklahoma City Thunder that I start to get into the weeds about is, okay, if you're the Thunder, yeah, you want to take swings on stuff, but at the same time, do you start to plan for the future of like who's going to get an extension, who isn't going to get an
Yep.
extension?
Yep.
Um, I think that's like my biggest fear is how do you properly plan for you know what is it? Isaiah Joe's making what, like $12 million a year. So, and if in over the next coming years, Lou Dort's going to need an extension. So, that's kind of
Cason
something.
Wallace is going to need the bag.
Yeah, Portland's been a team that I've been putting Cedric Howard as like the surprise pick there. But I think if Derek Queen or Colin Murray Boyles or Johan Berger is there, I think they'd go one of those guys with both DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams being on expiring contracts. And Donovan Clingan, I don't know what his potential is, and he's not able to play more than 25 minutes a night. So I think they'd go a front court player.
I can see it. Same with Houston. I have similar concerns. Like, if Klingon is part of your long term, even if it's 25 minutes a night, like if he's a starter for you, can you start both of those guys? I believe both have a path to being shooters in the NBA. I think Colin's shot's a bit more rough than Derek's is. I think they'd love Essengate to fall to them here. It'd be a beautiful, beautiful fit. Yeah, I think Queen or Murray Boyles would be a solid selection here.
Who would you choose? I'll defer to you.
For Portland and Chauncey Billups' system, I'm
feeling
gonna
like
go
he's like
Queen.
really. I was gonna think Murray Boy, but sell me on Queen.
I'm gonna go Queen because I think they have really interesting guards, like hyper athletic Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, and Freddie Simons if he's there. I think they're all really, really good with the ball in their hands as scorers. I think the jury's out with them as playmakers and facilitators to some degree. I think Derek Queen, I told you this a couple times when we were in Italy. I think Derek Queen has a similar opportunity to be a connector, like you see Isaiah Hartenstein with the Thunder. A solid screen setter, out of the high post, hitting cutters, moving with the ball in his hands, DHOs, like that kind of stuff. I think goes a long way when you have super athletic guards that can score with the ball in their hands, maybe can't set others up as well. Like, I think Scoot's obviously a pure point guard, but we haven't consistently seen the pure point guard out of him. And I think that Derek Queen is a better fit for the pieces that would be around him in this scenario.
Yeah, I agree. 11 Queen going to the Blazers is the pick we'll do. And I also like the idea of, people will like to compare him to Alperen Sengun, which I think is being a bit ostentatious. I think he reminds me of like Al Jefferson, a guy who, had really good
Throwback.
footwork. Yeah. I think he's has a more modern game, but similar, who's able to bang back to the basket, hit you with the drop step, but at the same time can, like you said, see the cutters going back door or off a flare and operate out of the elbow or the post, and with a lot of perimeter players, especially that outside of their bigs, they're and Denny Avdia, you would say it's kind of a smaller team. They're like not necessarily a long team. So I think getting some more size would be really good for a Blazers team, and they're able to go Queen here because they have Klingon and Aiden and Williams that they could really bring him on slowly and still try to push for a playing spot. So I
Yeah.
like that at 11.
Yeah.
12 were the Bulls. And I think right here, even though Josh Giddey's more than likely going to come back, I think Carter Bryant, Colin Murray Boyles, if he's here, and Johan Berenger are all like ones to be considered. But Kasparis or Jaguar are, I think, legit options, especially that Belly Donovan, as you were someone who covered the Oklahoma City Thunder
Yeah.
when he was there, loves to have hella guards on his team.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts?
I'd go one of those first two, Kasparis or Yegor, or I would still consider CMB here. I think that the offensive upside of this team, I think, has some potential. I think Josh is an engine. I think Kobe White's obviously a phenomenal scorer. Someone's got to defend. I think CMB is an insane defender, a versatile defender that can guard 3, maybe 4 positions at the next level. Like when I say 4, like not every play down, but if he gets switched onto a 2 guard or a wing that's kind of slippery, I think he can hold his own. Someone's got to defend on that team, and I think that CMB would be a decent fit there. So I'd go either Yakachonis, Demon, or Murray Boyles.
So this is where I like the Murray Boyles, and my one reason why I'm kind of leaning towards either Jaguar or Kasparis is because if they sign Giddey, they're probably going to have to trade White because White's extension eligible, and I don't think you can afford both of them. So you kind of, I guess, have a trade-off right there. And at this point, I think Josh Giddey has the higher ceiling or higher impact on winning than Kobe White does. So to me, that's where I kind of lean towards like a guy like Kasparis, especially being the Illinois kid, even though he's like from Lithuania. But I think Colin Murray Boyles, if he falls there, like you said, you can't really pass that up for a team that has struggled defensively. He's someone that I think you really, if he's there, he might be the best. Essengay or Murray Boyles would probably be the pick here.
Agreed.
So I'm gonna go CMB with you right here, just because again it fits what they need, and I don't think, like you said, they need to worry about his shooting right now because what he can help them do as a connective piece.
Yep.
Look, I think right here, if Murray Boyles goes to the Bulls at 12, now we're at 13, the Hawks. I think Johan Berenger is perfect. Onyeka Okongwu's a little bit undersized, and he's solid in everything. He finally got the starting center spot. Clint Capella's out the door. You get Johan Berenger, and I think the ideal situation with a guy like Johan is that he's Derek Lively. That's kind of like what I think people are getting ecstatic about, especially that he was able to play 20 minutes a night and be one of the best block rates in the Slovenian league. I would assume, especially with Quinn Snyder and his experience with Rudy Gobert and this team wanting to win now, Johan Berenger's the best player in terms of being able to probably contribute to a rotation now while still having upside.
I don't dislike that pick. I'm pretty strongly Yegor Demon with this pick if the Hawks are here and he's available.
Really, why?
Given Tre is such a small guard that can get picked on defensively, I think that Dyson Daniels is a great compliment to him. Obviously, unreal defender, has positional size. Now, if you can put Yegor as that third kind of backcourt / wing guy next to Tre, and you have him now next to a 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" defensive stud, and Dyson Daniels next to a jumbo guard that can play on the wing, and Yegor Demon, all of a sudden, some of Tre's flaws are masked, and you can really capitalize on his strengths. I just think that's a perfect fit. All 3 of those guys can facilitate and play make and do other things. I just think it's if Tre is your guy going forward, and we don't know, like maybe they could be sitting here saying if it didn't work with Tre this year, we're going to try to move him. But if Tre is really a guy you're committed to long term, you got to put size around him. And Yegor is a humongous guard. And I think he can play on the wing as like a 2 or a 3, or Dyson can play the 3. Like I think he would be a great pick here.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I think that's a great reasoning, and I know it's a new front office with Bryson Graham and Ansi Sala. I believe Ansi Sala was there when they drafted James Wiseman with the Warriors, so maybe he's scarred from that. And they go here with Yagor. I think Quinn Snyder's the right coach to develop. So at 13, you go Yagor, and like you said, especially since Bogdanovich was traded, it gives them another guard to play alongside or backup to start with Trae Young. And I said this, look, if Yagar doesn't work out as a guard, I really think worst case scenario, and this is a really good worst case, he is Josh Giddey as the slob wizard on the Thunder. He's a forward who's just a really good outlet passer and, sideline out of bounds passer who, has a shaky shot, but is, offensive connectivity is what like keeps him in the league.
I buy a shot way more than Josh is coming out of the NBL for what it's worth.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I also think Yagor. I think part of the problem was, no offense to Kevin Young, I don't think BYU's system was good for him, and I also think after speaking with him at the combine, I mean, this is what you need. Yagor is definitely like a very supremely like he borders lines cocky. His confidence. I mean, you have to have that confidence, but like I think that's also being from Real Madrid, going to BYU, first year in America. There was probably like the buying in. Probably is not going to be this. He's probably going to buy in way more at the NBA than he did at fucking Mormon College.
For sure.
Being a Russian who played in Spain. Like, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
Now, the Spurs are back on the clock. If they keep this pick, they took Harper. Do you think they would what? Carter Bryant? Yeah, I was about to say that you take a swing on a guy right there. He has all the defensive tools, and plus, if they do make a trade, it's probably going to be including one of Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, or Harrison Barnes. He can be a guy who can be a successor for one of those. Now, 15, you are the OKC guy. Do you think if Johan Berenger's right here at 15, the Thunder would snatch him up, or would they go somewhere else? I know you're a guy who's been saying they could trade up to get like an SNG or a CMB. Yeah, I love Sorber too.
Okay, so I've heard the Thunder love Sorber. I have not heard this from the Thunder side of things, but I've heard a lot of teams have Newell a hell of a lot higher than the consensus does. And if I'm the Thunder front office, there's two things I'm looking for here. I'm looking for either the Hartenstein replacement, because you definitely cannot afford him beyond the current contract, which is 1 year with another option after that. So like 2 years max, and he's going to get paid by somebody else. He's like 26, 27 years old. Like he's going to get paid. Either you need a center to replace him, or you need a bulky 4 that can help you get over this freaking hump of opposing teams' 4s torching you. The Thunder are so good at having a ton of positional size, long wings, big guards, and centers, but they don't have like a bona fide 4. Like PJ Washington torches them. Naz Reid somehow didn't torch them in the playoffs, always does in the regular season. Like this bigger, bulkier power forward archetype is something they've always struggled to defend. So I think either you take one of those types of players or you take the Hartenstein replacement. As such, again, I know they love Sorber. I think Newell is a reasonable option. I wouldn't rule out Noah Penda. I don't love him as a player, but he just kind of fits the cerebral Thunder.
Really, you don't like Penda? I like Penda.
I don't dislike him. At 15, I think I would.
No. Late first, early second.
Yeah. I think Will Riley is probably a type of player that Sam Presti would have drafted 2 years ago, but that archetype he's tried with Poku and Ousmane Dieng, and it just doesn't work.
Rasheer
system. Rasheer would be a guy that I would not be. If the Thunder's going to swing on a guy like 10 picks before people thought, Rasheer is the guy for sure.
Yeah, just because like I look at him, I'm like, damn, how you're saying just having a 4 be a 4 with like
That
what
can
a
hit
7
threes.
and a 7'5" wingspan.
Yeah.
That's what they and he's like what 21,
Yeah.
so he's an adult, so he knows how to come in and be a pro.
Yeah.
I really like Sorber because out of all the big men left here, he's the only wide body big left where like you have to go around Sorber. You can't like
Yeah.
even though Sorber's undersized, like he's 6'10" in shoes, he has a 7'7"
He's
wingspan.
humongous.
He's arguably just as good, if not the best passing big in this draft class, you could argue.
He's got a lot of the things Queen gets praised for. Sorber has the same upside.
Yeah, and Sorber's also really good out the short roll. And I think the thing with Sorber is he has a really high floor. His ceiling might not be as high as everybody else, but you're looking at a guy who's going to have a 15-year career being like one of the better backup big men in the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if you're looking at an Isaiah Hartenstein replacement, I think Sorber is that guy. And it kind of times up well where you give him a redshirt year, learn the ropes, don't feel pressured, maybe have Brandon Carlson play a little bit in front of him, and then when Hartenstein's gone, you throw Sorber into the fire.
You give him 10 minutes a game in crunch time, or not even crunch time, more like 10 minutes a game in garbage time when the Thunder are up 15 with 5 minutes left and a few minutes, in the flow of the game, and just have him pick and roll with Nikola Topic and just figure it out and give him a year just to play around.
So we're doing Sorber?
Yeah.
Word. 15. Thunder take Sorber. The Grizzlies are now on the clock with what used to be the Orlando Magic pick at 16. And this is interesting. They just traded Desmond Bane for Cole Anthony and Contavious Caldwell Pope. This is a team that I think wing is their weakest position, but
Clifford.
they could also. That's a really good one. I like that. I was gonna say it was Liam McNeely, Clifford, and then I could see a Newell, but I'm going Clifford. Do you agree with this? I think Nick Clifford is Aaron Wiggins 2.0.
I think he's Aaron Wiggins with a lot more ways to contribute. I think he has a clear path to an Aaron Wiggins role where he can get hot and elevate.
Very similar roles, yeah.
But I think he has more things than Aaron Wiggins that he can bring to the table too.
But I do believe it's that type of role, being like the seventh guy in a rotation, maybe a starter on another team, but he's kind of like that, jack of all trades, master of none, but like still really solid.
Yeah.
So 17, if 16 is Mr. I'm literally blanking on who we just took.
Clifford.
Oh my God. Clifford, yeah. Clifford, I was looking at his name. But Clifford at 16 going to the Grizzlies. Now 17, it's the Timberwolves. This kind of feels like a Liam McNeely pick. They need shooting.
I agree. That's who I currently have in my mock to Minnesota.
And I'm actually a really big Liam McNeely believer. Talked to the kid. He was hurt all year. He was arguably the third best player on that Monteverde team, maybe the second best player on that team.
He was like his college shooting numbers do not reflect the shooter he is in high school. He was bonkers good at shooting, and he's huge, dude.
Yeah, he's huge. Other thing is shot 36% on catch and shoot threes at UConn and was 43% from deep unguarded. So the numbers still show when the ball, given the opportunity. But he literally said I busted my ankle in like the first month of the season. He's like I came back early. He's like I played all year hurt. And if anyone's shot on a bum ankle, it's kind of the hardest thing. Yeah.
Easy.
So 17, literally.
Lift.
So 17, McNeely goes to the Timberwolves where he can be a contributor day one. Now at 18, the Wizards are back on the clock. They took Jeremiah Fears. And I've said that they could also be the team that takes two guards. They just say F it if Kasparis is there, and they took Jeremiah Fears or vice versa. They're like F it.
Agreed.
They could take both. But I think if Johan Berger is available, I think they would go right here with Johan at 18. They would just go with it. Okay. They would try to fill out that front court, especially they're trying not to run Rashawn Holmes out there again.
Yep. Let's do it.
So we'll go there. Now 19. Brooklyn's back on the clock. They took Essengay. I think this is where Kasparis' slide ends.
Yes.
He goes to Brooklyn. They take a swing on a guy. Yes. Now,
They're thrilled.
Yeah, they're thrilled. 20, Miami. This is where I could see Jace Richardson going. I could see also a Nolan Treor, Walter Clayton, or Sheer Fleming, Noah Penda. I could see a bunch of things going on right here. They have Khalil Ware, they have Bam Adebayo. They don't have a point guard. They don't have a point guard. And I think if they can get someone either to be a facilitator or play that Drew Smith role, would be huge for them. And I just don't see Will Riley being considered by them. He's like too green.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think if I was the Miami Heat, I would go Drake Powell.
Really? Why?
I just think that he's our guy Mikey V, like the king of men and combines. I'm sure if we asked him, he would say Drake Powell's measurements are sick. I think he measured super well. I think he's got traits on both sides of the floor that are super interesting. He just seems like the guy that Miami would take it. I think it's either if I had to put money in Vegas, Miami's taking either him or Jace Richardson.
I do agree with him or Jace Richardson. My whole thing with Drake Powell is incredible defender. Offensively, like, for someone who's as gifted as he is athletically, why has he not like put it together or at least shown the flashes of it? And I'm scared like he'll never be more than like a Derrick Jones Jr. offensively. Like in like not like terms of like being like a bouncy guy like that, but being more of like a transition player.
I think at pick 20, if you get Derrick Jones Jr., you're probably happy. Like, not that he's going to be Derrick Jones Jr. caliber day one, but like Derrick Jones Jr. is a good player that like was a humongous piece of the Mavs going to the finals last year. Like, I think if that's who you think he will become in 3-4 years, I think that's a great pick at 20.
But I don't think they have 3-4 years. They need someone to play this year, and that's why I lean towards Jace, even though he can legit be their like backup point guard.
I don't disagree with you, but I think if you're the Miami Heat, who I'm not a big believer in, and you think that your pick at 20 is going to help you win year one, that's the whole crux of your issue.
Yeah. Well, you should never draft like. I think best pick available. Who do you think is then?
Best pick on the board now. Scroll back up.
For the
I think Newell probably, but I think there's too much overlap with Ware and Adebayo. So yeah, I think they probably would go Jace. I do, and Jace would probably get torched by the fan base because he's not ready early enough, and he's undersized, and he's probably going to struggle in like Miami with too much. But I think he probably is the Miami.
He's the NBA son. He's Jay Rich's son.
Yeah. His little brother's amazing. I think he'll be better for what it's worth.
I mean, he's 5 inches taller. Me and Jace Richardson are the same size, bro. Now, I also think Jace Richardson being an NBA player's son and being an insurance policy for Davion Mitchell if he doesn't come back is the other reason to consider that one. So that's why I think he goes there at 20. So now at 21, the Utah Jazz are back on the clock. I think they take Newell right here. You know, Walker Kessler could be out the door. I just feel like that's kind of like the best, you know, highest potential guy remaining, and that would fit what they need.
Do you, Reynaud, do you dislike
Reynaud?
Do you dislike? I'm horrible with names. You've been with me in Europe twice now, scouting international prospects. Pronouncing names is not my forte. The Stanford big, do you dislike or like his fit in Utah?
I really like him. I don't like his fit in Utah because like defense is something that they need. And I think Newell, the whole thing is he's kind of in a tweener body, but if you send him to Utah, he has to play the 5, and it allows them to trade Walker Kessler. And I think Newell next to Markkanen could be something in terms of like two dudes running down the floor with size.
I think Newell's a way better player. There's a lot of draft stylistic stuff where it's like the better player doesn't always go as early. I think that Utah. I think his 3-point jumper. If they were to keep Lowry, and I don't know if they will, both those guys being able to stretch the floor opens up so freaking much. I would have gone Newell 10 picks ago if I would go him here, but like in a second. But there's just weird stuff sometimes where it's not how it works.
Well, I think also with Taylor Hendricks' injury and stuff, there's just going to be like front court minutes that I just think they go front court player
Yeah.
here. And I think defense is what they need. And Danny Wolf and Maxime being the other two options, I'm like, let's just go Newell because we have shooting already. We don't really have, like, besides Walker, an interior enforcer.
Yeah, it's fair. I love Newell, so let's do it.
21, Newell goes to the Jazz. At 22, the Hawks are back on the board after taking Yagor Demon. And this is, I could see them going Danny Wolf or Maxime Renault right here. I think Renault I like better.
Yeah, let's do it.
Drop coverage big, who can stretch the floor, do a little bit of, playmaking, and be someone who can help the second unit.
Yeah.
At 23, it's the New Orleans Pelicans through the Indiana Pacers. Dude, this is weird, but do you think like a Walter Clayton or a Nolan Traore goes here? Or Danny Wolf?
God, it's so hard because they're like they don't need anything really. Like they're a freaking well-rounded, really, 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 really good team. So
This is the Pelicans. This is Pelicans.
This is
by
Pacers.
The way.
This is Pacers.
No, but they traded the pick to the Pelicans today.
Oh yeah. Good call. This is a brand new one. Well, that changes a lot.
Murray's out with the Achilles injury.
Who did we take with the Pelicans?
Knipple.
I'd go Rasheer Fleming.
I was about to say Rasheer Fleming. I think, especially with Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver being there, the positional size. Now, 24 after Rasheer Fleming going 23 to the Pelicans, 24 being the Thunder again. I mean, do they go a Nolan Traore? Do they go a Hugo Gonzalez? What would you do? Like you said, Will Riley would have been a pick that Sam Presti did a few years ago. Noah Penda seems like the guy earlier that you said. Drake Powell's another one, especially with Lou Dort, probably going to be someone that they have to wonder if they're going to be able to keep him.
I believe that this pick will not be actually made by the Thunder on draft night. They don't have two spots to bring a player in. I personally,
who's the best pick available then?
I would take a swing on either Gonzalez or this is maybe you could tell me this is not a reach, but I think some people would say this is a reach. I would consider Tierra out of Arkansas.
Okay.
I would consider Powell pretty heavily too. Both guys are like in most mock second round guys, and we're talking about the 24th pick. So maybe you call those a reach, but I think those are probably the three names I'd consider.
I'd go Drake Powell if we were going to go for one of the athletic guys, just because I think he's actually the most polished defender out of all of them. And I saw Adu Thiero, who I loved watching. He's an absolute freak athletically. But he might be one of those guys that, like, just feel might never, like, come around.
Yeah.
I do like Drake Brown. Not Drake Brown. Drake Powell is Hubie Brown's cousin.
Really?
Yes. So at 24, the Thunder, whoever has that pick, takes Drake Powell. Now 25th, it's the Orlando Magic. And this is a team that I think they would go like Hugo Gonzalez or maybe a Ben Seraph. I just think or Chaz Lanier right here. I just think they're a team that likes their positional size. And especially after now trading for Desmond Bane, I mean, they might double down and just get another shooter. But I think Will Riley's another guy. Will Riley, Hugo Gonzalez, maybe a Danny Wolf. What do you think right here?
Let's go Nolan. I don't expect him to contribute day one on the Magic, but I do think even with Desmond Bane coming into the fold, they still lack like a table setter. And I don't know if he'll ever develop into a starting caliber table setter for a team that wants to make the playoffs for the next half decade or more. But I think there's a real pathway to him being a very, very, very good backup point guard. And I even with Jalen Suggs, as good as Jalen Suggs is, I don't buy him as an elite table setter for a contending team. I just think they need more facilitation. And even if that comes off the bench, I think that's still valuable.
Sounds good. Nolan Traore at 25 to the Orlando Magic, 26 and 27 to the Brooklyn Nets. They'll probably trade one of these picks, but if they were to keep it, I think Will Riley or Hugh Gonzalez goes here after taking Noah Essengay and Kasparis Yakachonis with the other two picks. You just go
How about both?
Just do that back to back.
Yeah.
Bet. Because I do believe a team, if they trade one of those picks, would do that. Now, the Boston Celtics are here with the 28th pick, and they also have the 32nd pick. I do believe they'll take Ryan Kalkbrenner or Danny Wolf, who is available here.
I've got Danny at 28 on my board, or my mock, and I've had it that way for weeks now.
So I will go Danny here, and I like that. Gives them a floor spacer, especially if Luke Cornett doesn't come back. And going over, so 28, Danny Wolf goes to the Boston Celtics. The Jew ends up where the Irish are. Now, I can say that because I'm also Jewish, but either way, Walter Clayton Jr. to the Phoenix Suns at 29. I just think that's kind of obvious. They need a point guard. He's kind of a Patty Mills type point guard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like it.
Who can play off ball if needed. Now, 30, it's the Clippers. If they keep this pick, do you think they go a Yannick Conan Niederhauser or Ryan Kalkbrenner? I think they do go back up big here, or Noah
You think? Really?
Drew Eubanks is not coming back. He's on a non-guaranteed $4.75 million deal, so he's expected to be cut. They don't have a backup big man.
I think the Clippers have the kind of organizational swagger to bring in a backup big in like a free agency. Like they're the type of team that can always bring in a backup big on a minimum that most teams don't have a shot at. What do you think about Ben Suraf here?
Well, like the thing is that the Clippers probably want to add some youth, size, athleticism, either a wing or a front court player. I just think they would like to have a true rim protector or a defensive specialist behind Zubats. I just think they're a little bit of a slower team. So I just think Seraph just doesn't fit that. Seraph is just like the opposite of athletic.
So you're not going to take Penda either.
I think Penda's got that Nick Batum in him, though. That's why they would pick him.
I think his athleticism is going to be not a problem, but it's going to limit him in some ways.
I think he's athletic like Tobias Harris is athletic.
If you're going to go back up big, I think you have to go Kalkbrenner here.
I agree.
That's probably my. You'd know better than me on the Clippers, but I think if that's the goal, that's you take here, and it's probably not a hard decision.
No, I agree with Kalkbrenner. Also, he can hit those corner threes if need be.
Yeah.
So 30, Kalkbrenner goes to the Clippers. Now 31, if you're the Timberwolves, what do you do right here?
It's so hard because like we have no clue if they're gonna trade or gut their depth for KD. They're gonna need a center.
No, KD's Timberwolves got frozen out of KD. KD says he has no interest going there.
That doesn't matter. Like KD doesn't want to play there. It doesn't matter.
The packages would be only Rudy Gobert, Rob Dillingham, and I think Mike Conley or Dante
which is significant because if you trade Rudy Gobert, who the hell do you trust to play starting center? Like
Naz Reid.
As I love Naz Reid, I don't think he ain't a rim protector defending kind of starting center.
TBH though, the Timberwolves would, with Tim Conley being here, would either do Noah Penda or Adu Thiero, I feel like. Even though they took McNeely. Or Chaz Lanier.
I think in either scenario, probably your best bet is Thiero. I think that with him and TSJ, if he's still there, if he's not part of a trade package, is super explosive. This is a different podcast for another time, but I don't care if KD doesn't want to play in Minnesota. If it's the best offer, Phoenix is sitting him there, and he's gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah, but he is working with his representation, so that's the only reason I bring that up. Now, 31 being Adu Thiero going to Minnesota with, I believe, Tim Conley. He did draft, or it might have been the year after him, but I do believe he drafted Peyton Watson. Either way, 32 is now the Boston Celtics. They took Danny Wolf. This could be Noah Penda right here.
Probably should be.
That's what I think. It makes sense. And Joe Mazzulla wants a guy who
Yeah.
can play the 4 and shoot threes. 33, the Hornets are probably going to trade one of these 33, 34 picks. But if Yannick Conan Niederhauser's here, I would take him. You?
No. Take our boy Markovic and tell the world how he says his name.
Bugalaja Markovic.
I think he'd be a sick fit. There's not a lot of pressure. You can kind of do whatever you want to do, and there's a lot of roles for you to play. And I just think if
my only pushback is Tijon Saloon had a really rough year, and I think they might be scared to take an international guy.
But it's pick 33 and 34. I think like that's the pushback I always get when I do mocks. I'm sure it's the same. Where like some Pistons fan is pissed at pick 37 that I mocked a big, and they're like, we already have Jalen Duren and so and so and so. It's like, it's pick 37, brother. Like this, it's not like we're drafting a guy in the lottery. I just think that when you get to this round, you can't think about positional fit, because in all likelihood this guy is not going to pan out. Like the second round likelihood is not very high.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he'd be a fun fit in Charlotte.
No, I
Spread
agree.
his wings.
Like, especially with Mark Williams if he works out. So Bugalaja Markovic, Bogey, goes to the Hornets, who I think could be the steal of the draft. He can pass, dribble, shoot. The only question is defense. But if it all works out, I mean, the floor is being Santi Alama, but maybe it could be the white man version of Pascal Siakam.
Hey.
So if they keep 34, I think they could be a team that goes an Alex Tui, a Chaz Lanier, a Jameer Watkins, someone just that doesn't need the ball in his hands, or Ben Seraph.
I like Tui a lot.
Word, let's go Tui right there. Gives them a combo forward at 34. Now 35, the Sixers are back on the clock.
Chaz, easy.
Yeah, they just take a 3-point shooter regardless. 36 right here. If Yannick Conan Niederhauser and the Nets keep this pick is there, they didn't take a big in our mock with Essengay, Jonas, Will Riley, and Hugo Gonzalez. They take a big right here to back up Nick Claxton.
Yeah, spread out the positions.
Or do you think they go the DEI with Mr. Josai there and they take Hassan Yang?
I'd take Yang over. Yeah,
I think Yang is Dwayne Dedman at best, but if you believe in him, you believe in him.
Yeah.
But Yannick Conan Niederhauser does go to the Pistons right here if he falls right here, because they're probably going to trade Isaiah Stewart, and this gives them a backup big man. 38, Ben Seraph to the Spurs. That just makes sense.
Yeah.
Perfect fit. 39, Jameer Watkins kind of would work great to Toronto.
A Florida State wing? Yeah, bro. He's going to Toronto.
Yeah, works out perfect. Now the Wizards are back on the clock. They took Johan Beringer and Jeremiah Fears. I think right here they might try to find somebody.
I got a name for you.
Who?
Sion James.
Really? I was going to say Sion James or Kobe Brea.
I like Brea too. He knockout shooter.
That's why I was going to say they didn't get a shooter. So I think they go with a guy who's going to be like a bona fide shooter.
Yeah.
And even though he's got 2 steel rods in his legs because he played through stress fractures. So at 40, Wizards take Kobe Brea. 41, it's the Golden State Warriors. I usually have Alex Tui going here because I would think that'd be a great fit. But I feel like right here, this could be like a Janai Broom or a Cam Jones. Cam Jones would be perfect for them. Kobe Sanders is another. I think that's a Swiss Army knife they would really like.
Yeah, I think I have... I don't know. This is a hard one. I like the Wisconsin kid. John
Tunji.
I don't think they need another scoring guard, but at the same time, like when they fizzle out in the playoffs, obviously without Steph, it's a whole different problem. But
Cam can play both point and shooting guard, so that's
Yeah.
one thing I
I've
was
never been
thinking
a
with
huge
that.
Cam guy, but I could see Cam being a pick for sure.
That's what I was thinking. Or Janai Broom to give him some more center depth.
I just don't think he's very good.
That's true. Or Tyrese Proctor.
I would not draft him. Proctor, I think will get drafted now with other guys dropping out. I would not take him this early.
So I would then lead towards Cam Jones just
To
because
Cam.
it just fits what they need and he can come in and play. So at 41, Cam Jones to the Warriors. 42, it's the Kings. And I actually like John Tunjay going right here. Kind of
Okay.
gives him an off the bench scorer. He's got some size. I think the only question with him is athleticism. And he kind of played a combo forward role when he's going to be a wing in the NBA. So that's just the biggest thing.
Yep.
Now 43, the Jazz are back on the clock. They took Newell and Johnson right here.
I got a weird one.
What?
If you think that Kessler's not going to be on the team, I may go Zakarski here.
I actually love that. I like that. They'd take that swing, especially with Will Hardy. Probably coach him up hard.
Yeah.
He goes to Utah. Now 44, so 43, Rocco Zakarski goes to the Utah Jazz. 44, it's the Thunder back on the clock. They took
Kobe Sanders.
I love it. I was about to bring Kobe Sanders or Sion James, but I like Sanders way better. Get a Swiss Army knife who can play the two of the three. Was a point guard in college, going 44 to the Thunder. Now 45, it's the Bulls. Who do you think they go after taking Colin Murray Boyles? I think this is a team that Sion James looks good in. I think they could be ones that go Dink Pate or Hunter Salas or even a Janai Broom. They don't really have a backup big.
I'll lean you on this one.
I think Janai Broom. Yeah,
Okay.
winner gives them a defensive pedigree at 45. Broom going to the Bulls. 46, it's the Magic. And they took Nolan Traore earlier. Dude, this is where I think they might go big or defensive guy. Just, do you think Vlad Golden too early here for him?
Yeah, I'm not a huge Vlad Golden guy. I might go
Micah
Eric
Peavy?
Dixon. If you want someone to shoot the shit out of the ball.
Yeah, I just feel like Dixon's going to the Knicks, but let's do it. I love Dixon.
Well, the Knicks ain't on the clock yet, brother.
Let's go Dixon going to 46 to the Magic. Now 47, it's the Bucks. And the Bucks have done a good job getting guys I think who can play. And I think Sion James fixed that like Ajax mole. And he's going to be someone to help them out. 47, Sion James to the Bucks. 48, Grizzlies. This could be Tyrese Proctor. This could also...
I've had Proctor mocked here for a little bit now.
Word. Perfect. 49, it's the Cavaliers. They're probably going to have to make some tough decisions. I like Micah Peavy going here. 6'8", gives them a defender. What do you think?
I think they need a big guard. I think they have a tiny little backcourt that's been successful in the regular season. Playoff, it's kind of struggled. Maybe an RJ, maybe a... I don't dislike Javon Small.
I kind of like RJ Lewis going right here, being a 3-and-D guy.
Okay.
Literally talked to RJ like 3 days ago. So RJ goes there at 49 to the Cavs. At 50, it's the Knicks. This is Micah Peavy if there's no Eric Dixon. You got a defender. Who are you going to go?
I think Ryan Nembhard would be a perfect New York guard.
Too small. You need a defensive. Well, I guess Tom Thibodeau is gone, so... But they have Deuce McBride. I literally think they go Dink Pate before that.
Okay. I'm cool with that.
Dink Pate?
Yeah.
Or I think a backup big, actually, because think about this. We don't know if Mitchell Robinson's staying.
You don't like
Ariel? Ariel.
Hook Porty.
Yeah, he fucked up his knee at the end of the year. He had a meniscus surgery.
Oh, you're right. Oh.
I think Vlad Golden, they go right here. Just to have like a...
I don't love Vlad Golden, but yeah, if you're going to draft back up big, it's probably the only guy that's... Amari Williams would be sick.
Let's go Amari Williams right here. The Englishman, the man, the British center. So at 50, the Knicks take Amari Williams from England, playing for Kentucky. At 51, the Clippers are back on the clock. Why does this feel kind of like Javon Small right here?
That's exactly what I've mocked on my...
They just would love Javon Small, shooter, gritty guy. Now 52, the Suns are back on the clock. Dude, Vlad Golden right here. They need a backup big.
Yeah.
He'll just like literally inhale boards. 53, if the Jazz keep this pick, I think they might do a stash, which could be like a Lachlan Ulbrich or,
What do you
a
think about
defense.
Almanza?
I was literally about to say Almansa. Let's do Almansa, the poor man's Al Horford. And if they don't want him right now, they could stash him at 53. The Suns take Almansa. 54, it's the Pacers. Look, the Pacers traded their pick, but I think Micah Peavy or a backup big would be what they go right here. And that being like maybe a Lachlan or Ulbrich. I also like Jones Adu.
I think all those guys you may be able to get undrafted free agent.
That's that's true.
What about Dink? Like all their guards are kind of small. Like they're dogs, but they're kind of small.
Yeah, and he's a swingman.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Dink Pate going 54 to the Pacers. 55, it's the Lakers. Who do you think they go right here? Big?
I've
PB?
got a weird one. I don't even know who's on this list. Amari Williams.
Amari?
Yeah.
We just took him.
Oh shoot. Oh.
Dude, they would go Dylan Cardwell. They would be the type of team to draft Dylan Cardwell.
What if... Do you dislike Tamar Bates?
No, I love Tamar Bates, bro. Love Tamar Bates. I saw him in Portsmouth. Literally, kind of like a Kent Bazemore type wing. Could play the 2 and the 3.
Yeah.
This is the Knicks. They forfeited this pick. So Tamar Bates going 54 to the Lakers. Michael Ruzic isn't in the draft anymore, so the forfeited pick of the Knicks at 56. We did that. With the 57th pick, I do think Michael Peavy is a Grizzlies guy at 57.
That's exactly who I have in my mock too. Yeah, it's perfect.
58, the Orlando Magic are back on the clock. They take Nolan Traore and Eric Dixon. I think Hunter Salas is the best shooter remaining.
Yeah, he'll be drafted. Getting him here is a good deal.
59, I could see this being a team that takes Ryan Nembhard. They took Craig Porter, the Cavaliers.
What do you think about Bryce Williams?
Ooh, but we took RJ Lewis.
You're right.
You don't like the getting another small guard. I was just saying they have an fetch. Do you want like a Will Richard?
I think the most fun situation is Mark Sears, where you have Brunson and fake Brunson on the same team. That I don't think that ever happened.
You think they do Grant Nelson?
That could be cool. I think, yeah. I picked 50. What are we at? 8. It's basically an undrafted player, anyways. You're just guaranteeing you get them. Yeah.
Or do they get Lachlan Ulbrich because they took Luke Travers a few years back?
No.
Let's go Grant Nelson. He's a fun guy. And with the final pick, the Houston Rockets are on the board after the Cavaliers took at 59 Grant Nelson. This, though, is where I think you could see a guy like Elijah Martin, Ryan Nembhard, Mark Sears go. I think they do go guard after taking Cedric Howard at 10. What do you think? Or they go Lachlan to stash him.
In my mock, I have Elijah Martin.
I like that.
I don't love it. I think it's just a guy that I think you can rely on to give you something early on.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be drafting like Caleb Grill.
Yeah, I mean, this draft has gotten thinner and thinner with more guys withdrawing. So like,
Jackson
Robinson would be sick.
I actually like that. Let's do that because I think he's a dark horse, and I don't know why he's like underrated. So let's do that. Jackson Robinson, and there you go. This is our mock draft right there. I'll scroll through it. Nick, tell the fine people what projects you're working on and where they can find you.
I guess I'd say everything is kind of culminated on my Twitter, my X, Crain NBA. Right now, what I'm working on is NBA final stuff. The Thunder plays Thursday. It could be the end of the series. It could be Sunday. From there, I'll fully pivot to draft. I'm doing a bunch of draft stuff now, kind of final big boards, mock drafts leading up to it. This is the time of year where stuff changes so quickly. But yeah, for all-encompassing, Crain NBA on Twitter will be the place.
Well, Nick, I appreciate you for coming on and doing this. Long overdue. I will be in New York next week for the draft, but will you be? I know your wife is gonna have a child, but like, are you gonna be in Vegas at all?
To be decided. If I do, it won't be the entire like 2 weeks. You always do that long. I've never been a full summer league guy.
I
You
do a
always
week
grind it
now.
out.
I do a week now.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I've always been a week guy at most. I'm getting to the point now where like the first 3 days is plenty for me because the hype dies pretty quickly in summer league. But if I do come, it'll be a day or two. We'll see.
Sounds good. All right. Keep me posted. I'll talk to you soon then. If you guys
Yes,
didn't
sir.
make it to the end, go check Nick out and hit that like and subscribe button. Cheers.